Good evening, Santa Rosa. How are you guys doing? Welcome to Barrel Proof Lounge. My name's Casey Williams. This is my place. First, we got to do a little housekeeping. So if everyone could grab a broom and or a mop. I just want to tell you guys, there's restrooms down the hall. There's a men's and a ladies' restroom. There's also 3 other restrooms up there. They're one at a time ski. So you lock yourself in there. All kinds of privacy. Just keep the drugs to a minimum. There's a popcorn machine over there. Popcorn is absolutely free. And this whole thing is made possible by my favorite poet, who is also my father, and that is Timothy Williams over there. Let's give him a hand. I gotta tell you guys, this is pretty awesome for me because, like, a long time ago when I was in high school, my dad used to do this thing called the Poetry Band at a place called the Old Vic, which is now, I think, Russian River Brewery over on 4th Street. And I used to go to these shows, and I had, like, an overhead projector, and, like, a baking sheet with food coloring and oil, and I would do this, like, trippy light show while he read poems, and somebody played a pedal steel. I mean, it was super, super cool. And so now I get to, like, produce my dad's show right here at my own nightclub in downtown Santa Rosa. So thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate you. Now, let's get this party started, all right? First up, we're going to introduce someone who's going to do a seasonal invocation. Please welcome to the stage Shawna Swetech, please.
Everybody! Yay, it's almost Christmas. Whee! So I wanted to talk a little bit about what the whole tree lighting thing is that we're going to do a little ceremony tonight. The midwinter traditions, as we all know, have their roots in every culture around the world. Before Christmas, as we celebrate it now, our ancient ancestors across Europe celebrated the Yule on the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. They brought in evergreen branches, wreaths, and even whole trees into their houses to celebrate how life survives a winter. Evergreens came to be seen as a promise that light will return and spring will come again, that life endures. The Germanic and North pagans decorated their trees with apples, candles, charms, representing good luck, blessings, the sun, and invoking the spirits of the ancestors and the deities. Evergreens were believed to protect homes from evil spirits during the dark months of the year. For the Celtic people, the trees were considered sacred because they were the things that stayed green when everything else died during the winter months. Romans celebrated Saturnalia, decorating their homes also with boughs, and celebrating the renewal and return of the sun. Centuries later, the Christian missionaries realized that they needed to incorporate these winter traditions in order to convert people. So by the Middle Ages, Yule blended with Christian symbolism, and over time, apples became ornaments, candles became tree lights, evergreens became associated with the Christmas miracle, the birth of Jesus. So no matter if you celebrate the birth of that son or the return of the longer days, no matter if it's called Yule, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Las Posadas, or other names from other traditions, the symbolism stays the same. Life in the dead of winter, spiritual renewal, hope in the darkness, the return of light. And so with that, I'd like to invoke all of that for us and our families and our community this evening. And let there be light. Woo.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Shawna and Casey Williams. I'd like to invite Enid, Pickett, and Sarah Baker. We're going to do a spoken word piece. And there's Enid will have a kind of a choral background in mind, so she'll tell you about that. Sarah Baker, Enid Pickett.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, everyone. I love Christmas. I don't know about you, but I love Christmas. And the songs really touch my heart. All you need to do is close your eyes, listen to a classic Christmas song any time of the year, and you're brought back to that special moment, that magic moment of Christmas. And it starts with a little hum that I'd like to invite you to join me. Doesn't matter what key you sing in, because when we all sing together, it's always harmony. We're going to sing Silent Night and hum it. All is calm, all is bright. Thank you. All is calm. All is calm. The nervous night sky stood steadfastly still, holding its breath, waiting. Nativity's north night. Did I lose the mic? Yeah.
Record.
I'd like to start again. Thank you. All is calm. All is calm. The nervous night sky stood steadfastly still, holding its breath, waiting. Nativity's north night star whispered, whimpered, wishing, waiting. The celestial sky silently smiles, twinkling with happiness, ready to reveal the magnificent majesty of his holy presence, waiting. Millions and millions of moonbeams know exactly where and exactly when to shine their heavenly radiant glows, illuminating our world with his blessings, caressingly casting his love light with his humble holiness, waiting. A gingerly breeze gently begins to sing silently, echoing his name, echoing his name. This night, this very night, the baby king will be born. He will have little hands to heal and help the millions. He will have little feet to walk and wander all across the land. His words will save the sick and saddened. His golden gaze will erase blindness. His virtuous voice will erase violence. His name will be Emmanuel. His name will be Emmanuel. The world is waiting to sing of his birth. He is waiting. He brings his blessings to us all. He is waiting to bring salvation to all things great and small. This night, this very night, the baby king will be born. The night sky twinkles with stardust over his head. Constellations create a holy canopy, waiting to celebrate his coming. Stars will dance as they fall, crisscrossing the midnight sky, waiting. Silent, sacred sounds sing and soar across the seas and ocean waves, waiting. Chorus of angelic voices sing salutations with their sacred songs of joy. This night, this very night, the baby king will be born. This night, he will bring peace and love. This night, he will bring hope and harmony. This night, this very night, let heaven and nature sing. This night, his spirit will fill and free our hearts with a new life. All is calm. All is calm. All is calm this silent night. Merry Christmas. Thank you, Sarah Baker.
And it's my pleasure to introduce the Poet Laureate from 2004 to 2006 with Sonoma County, Terry Ehret.
Nice to see you all. And thank you, Sarah. When Timothy asked me to introduce a child's Christmas in Wales, I couldn't imagine what I might say that you didn't already know about this story or about Thomas's life or his work. So I figured I might explore briefly my relationship with Thomas's writings, with Wales, and with this marvelously incantatory paean to his childhood. Thomas's story is only a few years older than I am. First recorded in 1952, and just a year before his death, at the age of 39. But it seems timeless to me, as eternal as the snow he remembers blanketing his home in Swansea, as ancient as the ice-edged, fish-freezing waves. Though he is known mostly for his poetry delivered in that deeply sonorous voice, I discovered this piece of Thomas's prose in 1988 when I was teaching a high school British literature class. We'd been reading Do Not Go Gentle and Fern Hill, and I decided to show the students the 1987 film adaptation starring Denholm Elliott as a treat before Christmas break. I remember being so enchanted by the film, I still am. And so were these students. So much so that when the announcement came over the PA that the students were to be released early, the class turned to me demanding to know how the story ended and if it ever snowed for that little boy. For all the years my children were growing up, a reading or viewing of a child's Christmas in Wales was a Christmas Eve ritual. When they left for college, one by one, I sent each off with a copy of the New Directions reprint my husband and I read from around the dining table. Prop with me for that. Yeah, beautiful. Our heads were adorned with colored paper crowns from the holiday crackers imported from England. One Christmas, my daughter Annalisa, who was just learning to crochet, put in my stocking a little crocheted nose bag. Another curious detail from the story. And then 13 years ago, I had a chance to teach 2 workshops at the sitting room, one on Thomas's poetry, the other devoted to his less well-known stories and autobiographical pieces, followed by 2 weeks of travel in Wales with writers from these workshops. There we visited Swansea and stood in front of his childhood home, walked along that 2-tongued carol-singing sea, made a pilgrimage to Fern Hill to read his poem outside the farmhouse gates, wrote together in his boathouse in Larne, the village where he, his wife, and their children lived the last decade of his life, and read out loud our favorite poems beside their 2 graves. Thomas's short life was remarkably rich in the poetry that is essential to Welsh culture and tradition. He gave that gift to his readers around the world, and it has made the journey from Swansea to Santa Rosa, where now you too will fall under the enchantment of this humorous, sad, magical, irresistible child's Christmas in Wales.
One Christmas was so much like another in those years around the Seatown corner now. And out of all sound except the distant speaking of the voices I sometimes hear a moment before sleep, I could never remember whether it snowed for 6 days and 6 nights when I was 12, or whether it snowed for 12 days and 12 nights when I was 6.
All the Christmases roll down towards the two-tongued sea, like a cold and headlong moon bundling down the sky that was our street. And they stop at the rim of the ice-edged, fish-freezing waves, and I plunge my hands in the snow and bring out whatever I can find. In goes my hand into that wool-white, bell-tongued ball of holidays, resting at the rim of the carol-singing sea. And out comes Mrs. Prothero and the firemen.
It was on the afternoon of the day of Christmas Eve, and I was in Mrs. Prothero's garden waiting for cats with her son Jim. It was snowing. It was always snowing at Christmas. December in my memory is white as Lapland, although there were no reindeers, but there were cats. Patient, cold and callous, our hands wrapped in socks, we waited to snowball the cats.
Sleek and long as jaguars and horrible whiskered, spitting and snarling, they would slink and sidle over the white back garden walls. And the lynx-eyed hunters, Jim and I, fur-capped and moccasin trappers from Mumbles Bay, would hurl our deadly snowballs at the green of their eyes.
The wise cats never appeared.
We were so still, Eskimo-footed Arctic marksmen in the muffling silence of the eternal snows,
Eternal, ever since Wednesday.
that we never heard Mrs. Prothero's first cry from her igloo at the bottom of the garden. Or if we heard it at all, it was to us like the far-off challenge of our enemy and prey, the neighbor's polar cat.
But soon the voice grew louder. "Fire!" cried Mrs. Prothero, and she beat the dinner gong.
And we ran down the garden with the snowballs in our arms towards the house. And smoke indeed was pouring out of the dining rooms. And the gong was bombulating, and Mrs. Prothero was announcing ruin like a town crier in Pompeii.
This is better than all the cats in Wales standing on a wall in a row.
We bounded into the house laden with snowballs and stopped at the open door of the smoke-filled room.
Something was burning all right. Perhaps it was Mr. Prothero, who always slept there after midday dinner with a newspaper over his face.
But he was standing in the middle of the room saying, "A fine Christmas," and smacking at the smoke with a slipper.
Call the fire brigade, cried Miss Prothero as she beat the gong.
"They won't be here," said Mr. Prothero. "It's Christmas."
There was no fire to be seen, only clouds of smoke. And Mr. Prothero standing in the middle of them, waving his slipper as though he were conducting.
"Do something," he said.
And we threw all our snowballs into the smoke. I think we missed Mr. Prothero and ran out of the house to the telephone box.
Let's call the police as well, Jim said.
And the ambulance.
And Ernie Jenkins, he likes fires.
But we only called the fire brigade, and soon the fire engine came, and 3 tall men in helmets brought a hose into the house, and Mr. Prothero got out just in time before they turned them on.
Nobody could have had a noisier Christmas Eve. And when the firemen turned off the hose and were standing in the wet, smoky room, Jim's aunt, Miss Prothero, came downstairs and peered in at them. Jim and I waited very quietly to hear what she would say to them. She said the right thing, always. She looked at the three tall firemen in their shining helmets, standing among the smoke and cinders and dissolving snowballs, and she said, "Would you like anything to read?"
Years and years and years ago, when I was a boy and there were wolves in Wales, and birds the color of red flannel petticoats whisked past the heart-shaped hills, when we sang and wallowed all night and day in caves that smelt like Sunday afternoons in damp front farmhouse parlors, and we chased with the jawbones of deacons the English and the bears. Before the motor car, before the wheel, before the Duchess-faced horse, when we rode and sang the happy hills bareback, it snowed and it snowed.
But here a small voice says, "It snowed last year too. I made a snowman and my brother knocked it down, and I knocked my brother down, and then we had tea."
But that was not the same snow, I say. Our snow was not only shaken from whitewash buckets down the sky, it came shawling out of the ground and swam and drifted out of the arms and hands and bodies of the trees. Snow grew overnight on the roofs of the houses like a pure and grandfather moss, minutely ivied the walls and settled on the postman opening the gate like a dumb thunderstorm of white torn Christmas cards.
Were there postmen then, too?
With sprinkling eyes and wind-cherried noses on spread frozen feet, they crunched up to the doors and mittened on them manfully.
But all that the children could hear was a ringing of bells.
You mean that the postman went rat-a-tat-tat and the doors rang?
I mean that the bells that the children could hear were inside them.
I only hear thunder sometimes, never bells.
There were church bells, too.
Inside them?
No. And the black bat, snow-white belfries tugged by bishops and torques, and they rang their tidings over the bandaged town, over the frozen foam and powder and ice cream hills, over the crackling sea. It seemed that all the churches boomed for joy under our window, and the weathercocks crew for Christmas on our fence.
Get back to the postman.
They were just ordinary postmen, fond of walking and dogs and Christmas and the snow. They knocked on the doors with blue knuckles.
Ours has got a black knocker.
And then they stood on the white welcome mat in the little drifted porches and huffed and puffed, making ghosts with their breath, and jogged from foot to foot like small boys wanting to go out.
And then the presents?
And then the presents, after the Christmas box. And the cold postman, with a rose on his button nose, tingled down the tea tray's slithered run of this chilly, glinting hill. He went in his ice-bound boots like a man on fishmonger's slabs.
He wagged his bag like a frozen camel's hump, dizzily turned the corner on one foot, and by God, he was gone.
Get back to the presents.
Well, there were the useful presents, engulfing mufflers of the old coach days, and mittens made for giant sloths. Zebra scarfs of a substance like silky gum that could be tug-of-war down to the galoshes.
Blinding tam o' shanters like patchwork tea cozies and bunny-suited busbies and balaclavas for victims of head-shrinking tribes. From ants who always wore wool next to the skin, there were mustached and rasping vests that made you wonder why the aunts had any skin left at all. And once I had a little crocheted nose bag from an aunt, now, alas, no longer whinnying with us.
And pictureless books in which small boys, though worn with quotations not to, would skate on Farmer Giles's pond and did and drowned.
And books that told me everything about the wasp, except why.
Go on to the useless presents.
Bags of moist and many-colored jelly babies and a folded flag and a false nose and a tram conductor's cap and a machine that rang tickets and rang a bell.
Never a catapult. Once, by mistake that no one could explain, a little hatchet, and a celluloid duck that made, when you pressed it, a most unduck-like sound, a mewing moo that an ambitious cat might make who wishes to be a cow.
And a painting book in which I could make the grass, the trees, the sea, and the animals any color I pleased. And still, the dazzling sky blue sheep are grazing in the red fields under the rainbow-billed and pea-green birds.
Hard-boileds, toffee, fudge, and all sorts, crunches, cracknel, humbugs, glaciers, marzipan, and butter Welsh for the Welsh, and troops of bright tin soldiers who, if they could not fight, could always run, and snakes and families, and happy ladders, and easy hobby games for little engineers, complete with instructions. Oh, easy for Leonardo. And a whistle to make the dogs bark, to wake up the old man next door, to make him beat on the wall with his stick, to shake our picture off the wall, and a packet of cigarettes. You put one in your mouth, and you stood at the corner of the street, and you waited for hours in vain for an old lady to scold you for smoking a cigarette, and then, with a smirk, you ate it.
And then it was breakfast under the balloons.
Were there uncles like in our house?
There are always uncles at Christmas, the same uncles.
And on Christmas mornings with dog-disturbing whistle and sugar fags, I would scour the swath town for the news of the little world and find always a dead bird by the post office or by the deserted swings, perhaps a robin, all but one of his fires out.
Men and women waiting, scooping back from Chappell with taproom noses and wind-bust cheeks, all albinos, huddled their stiff, black, jarring feathers against the irreligious snow.
Mistletoe hung from the gas brackets in all the front parlors. There was sherry and walnuts and bottled beer and crackers by the dessert spoons. And the cats in their fur belts watched the fires, and the high heap fire spat, all ready for the chestnuts and the mulling pokers.
Some few large men sat in the front parlors without their collars, uncles, almost certainly, trying their new cigars, holding them out judiciously at arm's length, returning them to their mouths, coughing, then holding them out again as though waiting for the explosion.
And some few small ants, not wanted in the kitchen, nor anywhere else for that matter, sat on the very edges of their chairs, poised and brittle, afraid to break, like faded cups and saucers.
Not many those mornings trod the piling streets, an old man always, fawn-bowlered, yellow-gloved, and at this time of year with spats of snow, would take his constitutional to the white bowling green and back as he would take it wet or fire on Christmas Day or Doomsday.
Sometimes two hale young men with big pipes blazing and wind-blown scarves, unspeaking, would trudge unspeaking down to the forlorn sea to work up an appetite to blow away the fumes. Who knows? To walk into the waves until nothing of them was left, until two curling smoke clouds of their indistinguishable briars.
Then I would be slap-dashing home, the gravy smell of the dinners of others, the bird smell, the brandy, the pudding and mince, coiling up my nostrils, when out of a snow-clogged side lane would come a boy the spit of myself, with a pink-tipped cigarette and the violet past of a black eye, cocky as a bullfinch, leering all to himself.
I hated him on sight and sound, and would be about to put my dog whistle to my lips and blow him off the face of Christmas, when suddenly he, with a violent wink, put his whistle to his lips and blew so stridently, so high, so exquisitely loud, that gobbling faces, their cheek bulged with goose, would press against their tinseled windows the whole length of the white echoing street.
For dinner, we had turkey and blazing pudding. And after dinner, the uncles sat in front of the fire, loosened all buttons, put their large moist hands over their watch chains, groaned a little, and slept.
Mothers, aunts, and sisters scuttled to and fro, bearing tureens.
Aunt Bessie, who had already been frightened twice by a clockwork mouse, whimpered at the sideboard and had some elderberry wine. The dog was sick. Auntie Dozy had to have 3 aspirins, but Auntie Hannah, who liked port, stood in the middle of the snowbound backyard, singing like a big-bosomed thrush.
And I would blow up balloons to see how big they would blow up to, and when they burst, which they always did, the uncles jumped and rumbled.
In the rich and heavy afternoon, the uncles breathing like dolphins, and the snow descending, I would sit among festoons and Chinese lanterns and nibble dates and try to make a model man-o'-war, following the instructions for little engineers, and produce what might be mistaken for a seagoing tram car.
Or I would go out, my bright new boots squeaking into the white world, on to the seaward hill to call on Jim and Dan and Jack, and to pad through the still streets, leaving huge, deep footprints on the hidden pavements.
I bet people will think there have been hippos.
What would you do if you saw a hippo coming down our street?
I'd go like this. Bang! I'd throw him over the railings and roll him down the hill, and then I'd tickle him under the ear, and he'd wag his tail.
What would you do if you saw 2 hippos?
Iron-flanked and bellowing he-hippos clanked and battered through the scudding snow towards us as we passed Mr. Daniels' house.
Let's post Mr. Daniels a snowball through his letterbox.
Let's write things in the snow.
Let's write, Mr. Daniel looks like a spaniel all over his yard.
Or we walked on the white shore.
Can the fishes see it's snowing?
The silent, unclouded heavens drifted onto the sea.
Now we were snowblind travelers, lost on the North Hills, and vast dew-lapped dogs with flasks round their necks ambled and shambled up to us, baying, Excelsior!
We returned home through the poor streets where only a few children fumbled with bare red fingers in the wheel-rutted snow and catcalled after us, their voices fading away as we trudged uphill into the cries of the dock birds and the hooting of ships out on the whirling bay. And then at tea, the recovered uncles would be jolly, and the ice cake loomed in the center of the table like a marble grave.
Auntie Hannah laced her tea with rum because it was only once a year.
Bring out the tall tales now that we told by the fire as the gaslight bubbled like a diver.
Ghosts hooed like owls in the long nights when I dared not look over my shoulder. Animals lurked in the cubbyhole under the stairs, and the gas meter ticked. And I remember that we went singing carols once when there wasn't a shaving of a moon to light the flying streets.
At the end of a long road was a drive that led to a large house, and we stumbled up the darkness of the drive that night, each one of us afraid, each one holding a stone in his hand in case, and all of us too brave to say a word.
The wind through the trees made noises as of old, and unpleasant and maybe web-footed men wheezing in caves. We reached the black bulk of the house.
What shall we give them? Hark the herald?
No, Jack said, good King Wenceslas, I'll count 3. 1, 2, 3, and we began to sing, Our voices high and seemingly distant, and the snow felt a darkness round the house that was occupied by nobody we knew.
We stood close together near the dark door.
The King Wenceslas went out on the feast of Stephen. And then a small, dry voice, like the voice of someone who has not spoken for a long time, joined our singing. A small, dry, eggshell voice from the other side of the door. A small, dry voice through the keyhole.
And when we stopped running, we were outside our house. The front room was lovely. Balloons floated under the hot water bottle gulping gas. Everything was good again and shone over the town.
Perhaps it was a ghost, Jim said.
Perhaps it was trolls, Dan said, who was always reading.
Let's go in and see if there's any jelly left.
And we did that. Always on Christmas night, there was music. An uncle played the fiddle, a cousin sang Cherry Ripe, and another uncle sang Drake's Drum. It was very warm in this little house.
Auntie Hannah, who had got onto the parsnip wine, sang a song about bleeding hearts and death. And then another in which she said her heart was like a bird's nest.
And then everybody laughed again, and then I went to bed. Looking through my bedroom window, out into the moonlight and the unending smoke-colored snow, I could see the lights in the windows of all the other houses on our hill and hear the music rising from them up the long, steadily falling night. I turned the gas down. I got into bed. I said some words to the holy darkness, and then I slept.
Give it up for Rob Catterton. Very much.
I want to turn my drums into song.
Okay. I'd like to call the first 6 readers in the Part 2 reading. Gabriela Vannier, Ann Hutchinson, Donna Emerson, Shawna Swetech, Dave Holt, come on up, and Brian Martens. Brian.
Welcome. I'm Gabriela Vannier, and this is Rain Walk. I shove open the heavy door against a gust of wind. Cold water splashes my face as I pull my hood over my head. I step out into the pall, my senses assaulted. Indistinct voices echo and bounce around the courtyard. Raindrops plunk my covered head and thud on car roofs and hoods. Whooshing wheels pass by, moving muffled music. Abundant umbrellas and glopping galoshes, faceless, bundled bodies, wet reflections everywhere. I fumble for my keys, my wet fingers clumsy and cold. As I open the car door, the weighted leaves surrender above me and punctuate this dreary day. I raise my gaze to witness the dark, dank sky bearing down. Beautiful menace. Is she punishing us? Is she cleansing us? Does it have anything at all to do with us? Does she even exist? Maybe the rain is just the rain. Thank you.
I'm Ann Hutchinson, and this is One Last Party. The lawn sponges under my Doc Martens. Hairs raise on the back of my neck. Clouds cast shadows over gray markers. Names and dates of no one I know. Here and there, smiling cameos belie the bones and dust below. Mourners gather on a hill. Sunbeams light a family crypt. Nature inhales, soft and still. My sorrow, like a wetsuit, clings, heavy with emptiness, regret. Once a dull ache, again it stings. I wasn't ready for us to part, but know you neither need nor hurt. Living on in love's own heart. Your legacy, it will resound. It lives on lips and in actions, not in this forgotten ground.
I'm beginning to see the pattern you've set up for us, Timothy. It's quite wonderful. I'm Donna Emerson. The poem is First Rain. As I hurtle north, sudden rain pelts my car windows, a cascade of pearls. I leave the wipers off. My breath deepens. My speed slows. When I can't see the road anymore, I pull to the side, next to the field above Novato, in grandmother's pumpkin patch. I take off layers of clothes to feel the rain, slip out of the car, watch it land on dry shoulders, creped arms. Cool rills bathe me, new smells of fresher air, sage, dripping water I can feel after 4 years of drought. Wet soaking deep into thirsty skin, water puddling above my collarbone, sheets of water gathering until rivulets form, running down thighs to my feet. The surprise of this rain makes its own music on land surfaces, hard surfaces around me, rocks, posts, snare drums played with brushes, on the bending grasses, the upper strings of a harp. Ravel crosses his left hand over the right before the glissando in judo, glittering rain. Dust rising from the cracked ground, the dirt smelling almost like earth again. Lighter than before, salvaged, silvery, surfeited. I sit down against a fence post, shaking water from my hair, touching drops in my ears, eyes, dry mouth open to rainwater's christening. Thank you.
I'm Shawna Swetech. I wrote this poem in 2020, winter of 2020, right when the COVID was really taking off, and it was the end of Trump's first reign of terror, as I like to call it. It's called In This Strange Light. Outside in the dark on December 21st, I peer at the great conjunction, 2 radiant planets at 0 degree in the air sign of Aquarius. Spectacular, and yet I'm awash with want, desperate for the year to end and take with it all of sorrow's plagues. But here, at the winter sun's still point, I refuse to cry, refuse to name the catastrophes. What I want is for the light to return, to know something good can be built on these terrible bones. Saturn and Jupiter star the western sky, first time in 8 centuries, and I've still so many memories to dismember and things to uncling to, like my father's bones, silently resting in the burgundy box he was placed in at Rose Crematorium more than 15 years ago. Can I finally let go of him and the potted ginkgo tree, both waiting all this time to enter the earth? I want to imagine the molecules and minerals of my father ascending the tree's roots, becoming shining stem and spring green leaf. But right now, undefined as sifted ash myself, I'm drawn to hibernate, to curl into endarkenment. Stars seed celestial mysteries tonight, yet how do I enter this silent, vital darkness? Who might I become in the long turning of seasons, encircled by my own dull penumbra? And what will it mean to become chrysalis cocooned in this strange planetary light? I look up and gasp as the white slice of a meteor splits seconds across the night sky. And though everywhere still the chaos and ills, and I've parts left to shed, I'm suddenly sparked and pulled towards something supernal in the glittering darkness, a fiery phenomenon I'd like to call hope. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dave Holt. This poem is from Southern Ontario, Canada. To believe as children. To arrive in a neighborhood of tall sugar maples, fragrance of wood smoke lingers in the air. To clamber up lopsided steps, a country porch, latticed veranda, rickety uneven boards, pushed willy-nilly by earth, more ancient than house. To be welcomed into a room of noise and talk, under a brass pendant light turned up bright, throwing shadows on faded floral wallpaper, brown water stained where rain leaked in. To watch wide-eyed as gilt-edged china gently lifted out of the cabinet's glass door is placed round a massive oak dining room table, grown larger with every leaf put in, while the homemade workbench in the garage is fetched for the kids to share. After endless delays, a shout from the kitchen for all to be seated, hold hands for the blessing, under Grandpa's stern look, aimed at cousins who joke and clown, who poke each other under the white linen cloth, a short, embarrassed laugh from Mother. Then we say grace, held in a circle of light and magic. To do all this is to believe the circle would never disappear, as children will believe, being closer to something timeless, that important things, love like this, can go on forever.
I'm Brian Martens, and this poem is This Quiet House. Not waiting for a softer bed, grandson Jack is napping on the dining room floor. So quiet, I wonder if he has passed. But no, he moves. A fury of action and movement, now content, asleep with the stars, his dream boat afloat on buoyant air. Clouds, thoughts, and me writing this quiet poem. Spring flowers blowing through, smelling sound, blustery coolness washes the land. I sit with words that incubate from air, falling, pasting on a page, waiting for providence. House so quiet with the young Buddha sleeping, filling this now holy place with childlike dreaming. All dreams of children want to be covered in peace, happiness, bliss. His soft, silent breath, dreams escaping on the backs of birds, carrying messages on the wind. When he wakes, the questions will come. The fairy tale and myth continuing the thread of dreams unbroken since the first man and woman. Mirroring the bushmen dreaming in their sky of stars and lightning, dream and mystery continue through his breath on my floor. This moment, his path of discovery. Thank you.
Terry Ehret, Bill Vartnaw, Anika Snyder, Jodi Hottel, Daniel Coshnear. Come on up.
So my name is Dave Setter, but before I read my poem, Winter Juniper, this event is so professionally organized and produced by Timothy Williams. Can we give him a round of applause? Timothy? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Same time next year, Timothy? All right. So I'm Dave Setter, and my poem is Winter Juniper. When just a shrub, the juniper's one arm rose above the winter snowdrifts, waving recklessly in the wake of the passing snowplow. Hello, wake up, neighbor. The plow noisily scraping down the street, jumbling the wet snow into building blocks for childhood igloos. A few choice cuts by the arborist failed to beautify the juniper, that is, if you believe in standards of beauty. But winter's force sculpted the arm into an ocean wave, frozen even in summer. You'd be excused if frowned at by your friends to call the juniper a wreck of a tree when so many Chevys and Fords rust away without complaint in breakdown lanes and driveways. Summer has come, reckless and resilient, with fires and sun, with the juniper still frozen and part of winter beckoning.
I'm Terry Ehret. My poem is Epiphany. It was written in remembrance of December of 2003, when over Thanksgiving weekend my mother passed away, and then 2 weeks later my husband's mother passed away. Epiphany. My daughters and I undress the tree, unhook the ornaments, roll each in crinkled tissue, place them into a box a large gift once came in, acknowledge the sadness of beautiful things coming to an end. Behind us on the TV screen, Ebenezer leans over his dying sister, Fan, and watches himself leaning and weeps. And just then, glancing up from the tin of hooks and piles of reused tissue smoothed flat, I remember how December had been so full of deaths, not near enough to unplug the tree or make my hand shake answering cheery cards, but enough to see this night as a burial of sorts, the wrapping and unwrapping, the boxes, the simpleness our dead promise. My 3 girls, arms raised like graces, unwinding the strands of colored beads and lights, while I, behind them, Watch the miracle of their beauty, their lovely, imperfect forms.
Hi, I'm Bill Vartnaw, and my poems, The Amphibians of Consciousness, for Carolee Sanchez and Diane DePrima. Beyond the quiet light, through the shadows of many child and adulthoods, beside the creek that swells in spring, the amphibians of consciousness gather around a rough and ancient oak, throughout the incensed and candled ceremonies, among satyrs and winged minions, the amphibians of consciousness dance. Beyond the oak's gnarled vertices, below the moon's near ivoried horns, behind millennial mask of lifetimes, the amphibians of consciousness sing. Before the alchemical fire, over the remains of 500 years of kings and queens, the amphibians of consciousness enter between the crackling tongues of flame, for the time of the phoenix is upon us, and within that soul-deep realm, the new journeys begin.
My name is Anika Snyder, and my poem is French Tips and American Advice. At 15, we walked the streets of our hometown at night, with the streetlights like watchful, parental, unblinking eyes shining on our nutrient-deficient heads. We called them Bella Walks because we both had small, quiet dogs named Bella, who we would trot out ahead of us like the leading cavalcade in the fight against growing up. Our hands and feet were bathed in the elite light of purpose and wildness and the perfect cosmic play of being fearful and safe. We had each other, and the waveforms of our girlhood were formidable with the force of budding friendship. 11 years have passed, and we do not live down the street or across town or counties over anymore. She is in France, and I am in the same old hometown. But we hold our sentient, terrifying, glorious phones up to our Bellas, and they shake their heads at our sentimentality. And I see my best friend at 15 again in the reflection in the shower door behind her, and it is morning there, and it is night here, and we are walking our different walks, bound by that same wildness. And even though we are afraid, we are briefly, fantastically safe.
Ooh, okay. Short person. I was one of the fortunate few to be on the trip to Wales with Terry Ehret. It was a magical time, and she reminded me in her introduction that Phyllis Meshulam was the person who read outside of Fern Hill. It was just amazing. I'm going to read two poems that were generated during that time. And I'm going to reverse the order. I don't remember if it's in the program, but I'm going to read Wales, the poem entitled Wales first. And Cymru is the name for Wales, and Cymraeg is the name for the Welsh language and its people.
and I was younger then. Wales, it is my 60th year on earth, and I have come from the hawk-hung, redwood-ringed western skies to Lake Lush, castled Cymru. I've come to know the flowered owl and burrowed bat, the curtains of mist and silver-beaded strands of fleeting falls. I've seen the green furrowed salt marsh, the scud of sun on the estuary, and I have known sheep in their stoic multitudes. I've heard the fierce fire in Cymru, a hard Scrabble language, sensed the pride sparks of its sturdy people. I have been a pilgrim in this place and wing these words into its cloud hills to sail among echoes of the ancients. The next poem, it's okay, is Blodeuwedd, speaks as an owl, and it's based on a Welsh tale in the Mabinogion, and I think I should let you know a little bit into that. Blodeuwedd was a woman made for her husband out of flowers, but she fell in love with another man and was turned into an owl as punishment. Blodeuwedd speaks as an owl. I've grown comfortable in my birdishness. My feathered finery suits me better than petticoats, better than my husband clawing beneath them. I crave thick bread with honey. Instead, mice squeak down my gullet, furred and bloody. But ah, the lift, the loft, my rush of wings.
Hard to get out of that sofa. This is going to be a bit different. I have two poems. They're both prose poems. First one's called A Suburban Legend. When Mr. Roberts lost his hearing, he didn't mind Mr. Griggs' leaf blower. It was pleasant watching leaves tumble in a steady gust of wind. Then Mr. Roberts miraculously recovered his hearing and lost his vision. Griggs and his leaf blower became Mr. Roberts' most hated enemies. Roberts kept a rifle in his garage, but he couldn't find it. He might have asked a neighbor for help, but that would have been incriminating, no? Some say he died from scowling. Some say his liver gave out. But get this, the moment after Mr. Roberts died, his vision came back. Thank you. I had no idea how that was going to go. Okay, this is called American Dream number 6. I have a story I want to tell about a Susan who lives in Susanville. You guessed it, she works at the penitentiary because that's all there is to do there. She's a guard. No, I mean Phil, her husband, is a guard. She's a school teacher and she lives in Susanville, but works in the next town over. And he's not Phil. There is a Phil, I think, I imagine. But he, her husband, is Enrique, and he's an inmate, life sentence, and her name is Liberty. She teaches the children of guards and inmates about, well, on this given day, the difference between frogs and toads, or I apologize, turtles and tortoises. Well, that's what the lesson plan called for, either or. But there was nothing in the budget, and the creeks run dry in summer. And so let's call him Kenny. Thickest hair she's ever seen, and onyx eyes, and no teeth in the front of his face. I shouldn't say no teeth. Bottle-rotten blackened stumps. But still, what a smile. It would melt your heart, all your organs. Let's call him Geronimo. He brought in a neon tetra and a goldfish and said, Ellos son peces. This story is about Hector's father's tattoos, sold to scalp saber-toothed cats. Terrifying, but some say he's as timid as a wilted salad. as fragile and gentle as the angel deer, which some say is extinct. They don't know. I want to call this story American Dream because I had this dream about Miss Liberty's children, the children of guards and the children of inmates, pledging allegiance to a flag with comets and stars, why not, and aquatic birds and flying fish, but no stripes and no fucking bars. And because the fire danger map was so red, it burned your fingers. And if I said pledging, forgive me, I meant praying, or rather, I meant dancing, because there is no other way to account for the sudden cloudburst, torrents of rain like out of the blue. Thank you.
Chappell and Dave Holt.
This is a sung poem. This is the orchestra.
Midwinter sunlight softly burns like embers in a fire. The hypnotizing glow and hum of candles and a Christmas choir. Muted colors of the sky change as the planet turns, just like a stained glass window's light. The memories return. The hurry and flurry to get things done, hanging wreaths and holly. This time of year evokes the moods of both joy and melancholy. Tattered recipes for foods cooked only once a year. Glasses lift in loving toasts to friends and family far and near. A Christmas tree with sparkling lights, a note tied to a gift, children's faces lit up bright. Oh, give your heart a lift. Christmas tree with sparkling lights, a note tied to a gift, children's faces lit up bright. Oh, give your heart a lift. Another year has come and gone. The toddler stands up straight. Each one of us finds gratitude and cause to celebrate. each one of us finds gratitude and cause to celebrate.
Okay, thank you very much, David and Chappell Holt, for that beautiful piece of music and song to close our evening. I hope you had a good time. I have one announcement for 2026. We've got a special edition of the Poetry Salon on January 13th, the same hours, 5 to 7. Gene Hagland, Ken Rogers, Guy Biederman, Betty Rogers, and special guests. Hope you'll join us. Now we'd like to, if we can, for photographs, the cast and everybody come on up and get your cameras out.